Okay, here we are with another special guest. Today we have a drummer that plays almost with everyone, I must say. Yeah. We have Ken Mary from LA, I suppose, in this moment.
Well, actually, in this moment, I'm coming or talking to you from Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay. I was completely wrong. Then I have to say something, because you play with so many bands that, of course, I have to take a look at this huge and impressive list. Well, let's say Fifth Angel, TKO, Chastain, Alice Cooper, Impellitteri, House of Lords, Flotsam and Jetsam, and you collaborated also with many other albums. So I would like to ask you if you give us some impressions, some memories about each of these bands. Well, starting from TKO. TKO are I don't want to say underground band, but not so well-known band here in Europe. But they made two important albums in 1984, 1985, In Your Face and Below the Belt. TKO. So you can say something about this band, because maybe we don't know much about it.
Sure. Well. It was obviously one of my early bands, and it was a lot of fun. We were very young and very excited about music. And one thing I do remember is
it was your first band.
No, actually, my first band is really my high school band, which is Fifth Angel, and I actually joined TKO after that. But
I see.
TKO was. Another Seattle band. They were really big in Seattle in the late 70s. They played some huge festivals, like with Heart and some other artists. So they had an album out in the late 70s that was very successful. So they were kind of a very big band in Seattle. So when I joined them, it was sort of like a new time for that band, and they were trying to reinvent themselves, really. The singer is a guy named Brad Sinsel, and great singer, great front man, very, very rock and roll. I mean, I always felt like the band should have been a lot bigger, than it was. I mean, it really was a great band. And he had a very great style, very aggressive, metal kind of style for that time. It was very metal. And
I got both albums, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
I bought it at the time.
Yeah. So, that's really what I can say about that. I mean, it really was I felt it was a great band. I feel like it should have done a lot better, maybe than it did. And, I think their heyday was really probably the late 70s was the time period where they were the biggest. I mean, I think they played with, opening for like Van Halen, and if you research it, you can find that they played some major festivals in Texas and California. I think they played Cal Jam or something, but if you want to do the research, I mean, I think it was a cool band. I know you have a lot, so we'll move on.
Moving to Fifth Angel.
Yes. Well, that's really my first band. I mean, Ted Pilot, Ed Sane, and I played together since we were kids, literally. They saw me. They were in high school. I was in junior high, and they came down to a talent show that I played at, and somebody told them, they were looking for a drummer, and somebody said, "Hey, this kid's pretty good. You might want to go check him out." And so it was kind of fun, because I was always the youngest guy, and they were in high school, and I was a kid, so it was very exciting. I was hanging out at parties and playing keg parties and things like that, where I was the youngest person there, and not of legal age.
So at that period, heavy metal was quite popular there.
Yes, heavy metal was really starting to. Well, Seattle was definitely at the forefront of the metal scene. Queensryche burst out of the Seattle metal scene in 1983. Fifth Angel, we started doing our demos and recordings, I think, in 1984, and then we got signed, I think, in 1985, and then signed to Epic Records in 1986. So it was the metal scene was quite good up there. I mean, we had Metal Church, we had Queensryche, we had Fifth Angel, Heir Apparent. I'm trying to think of some other metal bands that were, this is before grunge and all of that happened.
Absolutely.
But the Seattle metal scene was very robust, and we were all very young and full of spit and vinegar, and everybody was really thinking that we would go out and take over the world.
And the first album, in my opinion, is a little masterpiece because it's very epic and melodic too, powerful at the same time. And Ted Pilot, great vocalist.
I agree. I think it's another one of those situations where perhaps the band should have been bigger than it really was. I mean, I think we did everything we could to try to make a great album. And I think we were fortunate in the fact that here we are over 40 years later. Well, I think not quite 40 years, 39 years later, we're talking about that album. And when we made that record, we never believed that,
because
would be
Fifth Angel still exists. We have to say this.
Yes, it does. Yeah, absolutely.
A new album went out recently.
Yeah, it was 2022 or 23.
22, I think. Maybe. Yeah.
I can go take a look if you want. I have it right behind me. Hold on.
Because you have so many commitments, maybe sometimes you can forget something.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to find the album. I can't find the record right now, but I do believe it was 2022, or maybe it came out in 23. I'm not sure. I know we recorded mostly in 2022.
How is the lineup right now?
Lineup for the band is great. I mean, it's three of the original members: John Macco, Ed Archer, and myself. And also added to that is Ethan Brosh and Steve. Wow, I guess I'm getting a little morning brain fog here.
We have to say this, that
Steve
here
Carlson,
in Italy it's afternoon, but there
it's very early. It's very early here, but Steve Carlson is the singer, and he's fabulous. He's an incredible singer and frontman, and we were very fortunate to find him for this record. The ironic thing is that Steve was a singer in Seattle in the 80s and 90s, and we had never run across each other. So it was kind of weird when I live in Phoenix, and Steve Carlson also lives in Phoenix, and so we have a mutual friend, Mike Gabi, and Mike Gabi knew we were looking for a singer, and he said, "Hey, you need to check out Steve Carlson." And I just think it's very unusual that he was from the Seattle music scene, which is really cool. It's really cool. He was active the same years we were.
You have done recently concerts in Europe or in the next future?
Yeah, we have some shows coming out. I mean, we've done a lot of shows. I mean, we've played a lot of festivals out there, and we've been to Europe a number of times. And the band is coming back in September.
That's what I want to ask you. In your opinion, what are the differences between Europe and US? I mean, about many things. About, for example, festival organization, audience, people. How do they react from your music and stuff like that? Your impressions about Europe and about US?
Well, I think in the United States, I think it's a different animal out here. I think a lot of the new metal is very popular. I think a lot of the older, like maybe more the what I would call, the original kind of metal is not as popular in the United States. I think Europe respects it more. I think they do care when a band has a legacy and a history. In the United States, they don't really care. I mean, in my opinion, it's like it seems like there are fans, and they're certainly fans of the band that stick with the band and have stuck with us for many years. But I think it's a completely different scene in Europe. I think Europe is much better for bands like Fifth Angel and Flotsam, and because I think people appreciate the history.
It's kind of weird because here we always think that America is the best place to play heavy metal, to play rock and roll. Many things changed and never returned the same, in my opinion. Also here in Europe, but probably mainly in US. You are from Seattle, so you can give us some impressions about what happened after grunge takeover.
Well, I think it sort of killed off a lot of the what I would call maybe legacy bands, bands that had been around for a number of years, and so the grunge movement really did kind of it definitely hurt a lot of bands. I mean, even major bands. I think even Metallica went through a very tough period. So did Megadeth. I mean, these are major bands, and they had difficulty navigating, the 90s. The 90s were very, very difficult for a lot of these bands, and certainly for bands like Fifth Angel, we lost our record deal. It was a very difficult time for a lot of what you would call more like the classic, melodic rock, or maybe even things like thrash metal. Very, very, very difficult time for all these bands.
And then going back to your career, we have to say that you joined Alice Cooper band. And how does it happen?
I was touring with an artist named Randy Hansen,
a guitar player. Looks like Hendrix almost.
Yes, he does a Jimi Hendrix tribute, and is fabulous and an amazing player. And I was playing the Whiskey A Go-Go, which is a very famous club in Los Angeles. And some people from Alice Cooper's that were working with Alice Cooper's management company came down, and they saw the show, and they were like, "Hey, we're putting together, a new band for Alice. Would you be interested in auditioning?" And at the time I was very young and lived in Seattle, and that the flight was like $300, which in today's money is probably like $1,000. So it was a big gamble for me. I didn't really have the money. I was very young, but I was very excited about the opportunity. So I flew down, and they had 3 days of auditions, and I auditioned, and I think I was on the second day, and Kane Roberts, the guitar player, he looked at me and he goes, "I can't imagine anybody's going to come in here and do better than that." He goes, "So I'd love to be able to tell you, but we have another day of auditions, so, but good luck, kid." kind of said that or whatever, and sure enough, I got the call, and next thing I knew, I was playing sold out Joe Louis Arena, 22,000 people, 20 million people on MTV watching, and it was a complete. It was just amazing, because the biggest place I had played before Alice was probably about 3,000. It was the Paramount Theater in Seattle. And then, after touring with Alice,
that was the period that Alice was coming back to play something heavier.
Yeah, it was heavier, and I think also it was a first time he had toured. I mean, this was his big comeback tours. I don't think there's been any tours that have been larger since then. Like I think the places we were playing were, it was all coliseums, all arenas, and they sold very, very well. So I think that was some of the most successful tours that he's had.
What was your impressions about him? I mean, that he's a quite nice guy, recalling to the song, or weird person.
Well, oh, that's funny. Well, I never really met him, so I don't really know. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. I always tell that to everybody. They're like, how long did you tour with Alice? Oh, 3 years. Well, I never met him, so but I'm just kidding. No, he actually is amazing on many different levels. There's a lot of things people don't know about him. He is a very intelligent, very intelligent person. I think a lot of people may know that now, but back in the day they didn't know that. And then his sense of humor, tremendous sense of humor. So he's he was great to work with. I really enjoyed working with him. And people always say, well, why did you leave? Why did you go do your own thing? And I will say this, there were a couple people in the organization that I kind of feel were maybe not good for the organization, that were always telling the band, like, hey, don't get too comfortable. This isn't your home. Like they made you feel like, you need to go out and do it on your own. And those people are not there anymore. And consequently, they've had a band that's, been around for 15 years or something. So, or, something like that. And they've been together for a very long time. So I think, the lesson is get rid of the, the people that are causing the problems, and you won't have any problems.
Kip Winger was with you in the band, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Great guy.
And obviously he felt the same way. He felt like he's going to have to go on and do his own thing.
We all know about it.
And so did Kane. I joined House of Lords. Everybody felt like, hey, you have to go do
That's
your own
another
thing.
very important band that I really loved. I remember that at the period I was looking MTV here in Italy and at Bangers Ball probably, and House of Lords with some of their major song, probably a cover version of
Can't Find My Way Home, maybe?
Yeah,
or,
that's it. Yeah.
That was a big hit for us. That was number 6 in Billboard, and it was our biggest hit. Which it's a funny story about that. That's actually our demo. We did a demo on an Akai 12 track, and that ended up being like we couldn't capture the magic on the 32 track digital. So we took the 12 track, we dumped it to the 32 track digital, and then mixed it, and that was our biggest song ever. So it just goes to show you, sometimes when you catch the magic, you can't you can't do it again.
And Gene Simmons was the producer.
Well, he was the
the first album.
Yeah, well, he's the executive producer.
Which, okay.
Yeah, which and he would be in the studio a lot, and but I think Gene recognized that in terms of the musicians and the band, the musicians in the band were very, very good. In House of Lords, so he would come in and he would be like, yeah, that sounds great, and I'd be like, well, I'd like to do that again. And he's like, why? What's wrong with this? This is a waste of time. The first take, third take, fifth take, it doesn't really matter. That's what he told me. And looking back, he's kind of right, because there's things that matter to us as musicians that no one else is going to hear and no one else is going to ever care about.
This is true.
We're trying to get it all perfect and make things exactly right. And I think people at the end of the day, they're there to feel something. And, whether it's the first take, fifth take, whatever. As I've gotten older, I tend to agree with Gene more. I think he was correct.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And House of Lords was big for almost 2 or 3 years. I don't remember exactly, but for sure, Greg Giuffria and Lenny Cordola, if I remember well.
And also Doug Aldridge was on the second album.
Yes.
He played, he's fabulous guitar player. Really. This is funny. Look who's calling me. Kane Roberts.
I just can't believe it.
Kane Roberts is calling me. He's done that before when I've been on interviews, so I'm not gonna let him. I'm not gonna let him.
We can
talk
have
this time,
an interview with him too.
Yes.
It was a scoop.
Yeah.
Okay, very funny. So House of Lords was big for a while, but then what happened?
I think the same thing happened, that happened to everybody else. The music scene changed dramatically, and that this type of music that House of Lords was producing and creating was not the fashion anymore, and so it sort of just kind of closed the door on that whole period. So unfortunately, that was the case not only with House of Lords, but with really almost any band from that era. House of Lords almost escaped it because it was a little more almost progressive. It was almost, if you listen to songs like Kiss of Fire and you listen to, the lyrics weren't like, She's My Cherry Pie and all that stuff. It was not, lyrics were like Hearts of the World and Sahara and, just a lot of different things. Can't Find My Way Home was a very serious song. There were a lot of very serious messages. I mean, there's a few songs here and there that were a little on the campy side, but House of Lords almost escaped that whole thing. But I think the band was respected as musicians, even in the grunge era. Like, I think people really looked at the band and went, "Hey, these guys were really, pretty amazing musicians."
And James Christian, nice. What a singer, what a voice!
Yeah. I think in his time, in his day, he was one of the best, and certainly an amazing live singer. Like, he could really produce live what he sang on the record at that time, during that era. He was really fabulous. Well, I'm just going to tell Kane I'm on an interview.
Who is now Alice Cooper now.
Yeah, that's fine. Hey Kane, I'm just doing an interview. Can I call you back in about 20 minutes? Hello? Hey, I'm on an interview. Can I call you back in about 20 minutes? All right, bye.
Obviously, I will cut this.
yeah, you can cut that out.
Although it's quite funny.
or you can leave it in. Whatever you want to do.
Whatever you want.
Whatever you want to do.
Okay. Now let's talk about you. About you like a drummer. How did you start to play drums? And you have some. How can I say? I think you understand. Some drummer that you really admire.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of drummers that I admire. Yeah, there are many drummers. Yeah, I think there are many incredible drummers. I think especially today, drumming has really kind of progressed and moved on to a large degree, and I think you have to really work to stay on top of all the progress that's been made in the last 20 years, especially. Like 20 years ago, we would think.
Can I say you something about this this thing that you see in YouTube, that there are even little child that play drums like I don't know, like Neil Peart, almost at least. And how can this be possible? I can't realize.
Sure. Well, I think it's possible because as time goes on, and especially now with YouTube, people can learn anything off of YouTube now. And, back when I was starting, you had to listen and try and figure out what they were doing on a record or on a CD and try and be able to emulate it just based on listening. And for something like Buddy Rich, for instance, that's very difficult. That's a very difficult thing to discern what he's doing because it's very fast. And you're not able to actually see the arm movements. You're just hearing a lot of notes. So I think the difference now is that people can examine on YouTube exactly what's being done, and so I think that allows people to start at a much higher level. Like back when I was starting, drumming was very Neil Peart was the most advanced thing that there was in drumming. Period. There was, let me rephrase that, because there's two drummers that, in my opinion, are the most influential drummers of all time. One of them is Neil Peart, and the other one is Buddy Rich. And Buddy Rich, I tried to learn, Buddy Rich, from my drum instructor and by listening to Buddy Rich. But it was very difficult because he's doing many things that you are not able to discern unless you can see it. So I would say, in terms of my favorite drummers, John Bonham, Buddy Rich, and Neil Peart, until, the 80s when thrash metal showed up, Flotsam and Jetsam was an influence too. Kelly wrote some amazing drum parts that are still to this day, challenging to play. Like he was so far ahead of the curve in what he was writing, for back in that time period. I don't know if there's really anybody back in that time period that was attempting to do the things that he was attempting at that point. But
so you think probably that also playing double bass drum is quite important, at least to have a...
Well, at least for me. I mean, I really enjoy it, and it's something that I've always incorporated into my playing, and so for me, I've always enjoyed it. Double bass has always been something that for me it's a no-brainer. But I'm not saying that everybody has to do it, but I think if it speaks to you and you enjoy it, then by all means you should
You're not only a very, very good drummer, an influent drummer, but also a producer or something like that. You have the complete package on your side. I mean, you can do everything.
That's very kind of you to say. No. I'm also a gymnast and a veterinarian. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, I'm not. I'm not either of those. But yeah, I do drum. I write. I sing. I produce. I engineer. I have a recording studio that I've had for 30 years.
So music is your full-time job.
Music has been my full-time job, for my whole life. I've never really. Well, when I was very young, I was in construction for a couple of years. I graduated high school at 16, so that was something that I got an early launch on. But I for my whole life it's basically been music, which has been really, it's been a very interesting career.
And you was all the time, every time into heavy metal and into heavier music, or also in other type of music, because sometimes happen that musician wanted to discover something else and to play or to listen, for example, I don't know, jazz, funk, or so.
Sure. Well, growing up, I was very much into jazz and fusion and pop and rock, and then when I was a kid, I saw Kiss. I think it was 1978 or 79. I think it was 78. Mm-hmm. But when I saw Kiss, my drum teacher had been teaching me things like Yes and Return to Forever, these progressive bands, and Buddy Rich and Louis Bellson and jazz and all these things. And then I saw Kiss and I was like, I kind of want to do that. That looks like a lot more fun. So Kiss, I think a lot of metal guys, Kiss. Yeah. Kiss ruined us all. Like you talk to David Ellefson, you talk to, many musicians that are in metal. Their first concert was Kiss, and
I can testify that every time that I made doing some interviews with some musicians, especially from US, they told me that start to play and to love music, listening and watching Kiss alive.
Yeah. So it was really fun. It was really fun when I later on when I got to work with Gene. I really enjoyed working with him, because that was when I was a kid. He was on my wall with all the posters, and I went to see them play, and I would listen to their records all the time. So it really was kind of an amazing thing to actually be working with them at the point that I did. So it was a lot of fun.
How are your feelings now about the scene for young people? I mean that probably now pop music and hip hop takes over in every place, surely in America. And young kids want to play rock and roll or not? I'm not sure.
In the United States, I'd say not as much. You don't really see kids. You don't see a lot of young rock bands. There are new metal bands, I would say. There's a lot of newer metal, and I know new metal is becoming more popular in Europe now too, from what I've seen at the festivals. So I'd say kids are more likely to be doing that probably than any other type of music, but there are television shows like The Voice and American Idol here that have made being a singer a very popular thing, and there's a lot of solo singers out there, doing what they can to create careers for themselves.
That's a pity, because when I was a kid, of course, I was looking to Motley Crue, and I wanted to be like them.
Sure,
so I don't know if kids now look to many bands like this and say, I want to be like them, because they probably don't see them on TV or... okay, now you have everything online, but
yes,
depends if you want to reach this music. It depends if you know this. If you don't, it's quite difficult. At the time, you see MTV had Bangers Ball, and wow, these bands are incredible. I want to play like them. I want to have a rock and roll life with them, like them. Now. Who can tell? Probably not. Probably they are looking to hip hoppers, to rappers.
Yeah, hip hop and rap are huge, and I think in terms of the United States market, metal is, in my opinion, it's not really allowed. They do whatever they can to marginalize it on the social media networks and also on YouTube, and it's ridiculous. I mean, it's like, in my opinion, it's an actual effort to keep that kind of music out of the culture. And there's a few bands that break through once in a while, like Rammstein. Like they have huge festivals in the United States. Play huge venues. Five Finger Death Punch does pretty good. But for the most part, Ghost, I guess, is another band that does well. But I mean, for the most part, the United States metal scene is very marginalized, and there's just a handful of bands that can actually, make something happen in terms of attendance in the United States.
So in the end, let's talk about Flotsam and Jetsam. What's going on in the band? What's the next plans?
Well, next plan is there's a new album that comes out September 13th. It's called I Am the Weapon. There's been singles that have been released. They're already out on YouTube and Spotify, which don't get me started on Spotify.
I got the latest. I listened to it, and
Great.
It was totally powerful. Very good. I
think it's a powerful album. I think it's been kind of a renaissance for the band. I think the last four albums, I think, including this one. I think starting at self-titled, I think there's something kind of new, like a new energy kind of happening in the band, and I think it's a really cool combination of respecting the roots and having the roots of the band in there, but also taking it a little bit more into now into the future.
Yes.
And
also
personally,
the sound.
Personally for me. I normally, when I get done producing or being involved in a record, as much as I was involved in the Flotsam records, like I never want to hear them again. I don't ever, it's like you hear them so much in the creation that you're just kind of done with it, and you don't necessarily want to hear it again. And these records, I actually enjoy listening to even now. Like I can listen to The End of Chaos, and I can listen to Blood in the Water, and I can listen to I Am the Weapon. I can listen to these albums and still enjoy them, which is very unusual for me. Like normally once I'm done with a record, I'm kind of done with it.
They sound fresh.
Yeah, well, I enjoy it, and for some reason, the songs, in my opinion, are, I think that there's a lot of great songs there. I think if we were in a different era, like if we were in the, late '80s or early '90s or whatever, I think these albums would be just changing the band's career. I think the challenge now is that we have just so much product coming out. Every single minute. It's like on Spotify, there's 100,000 songs a day getting uploaded to Spotify. There's 1 million videos being uploaded to YouTube every day. So how are you going to break through that? I don't know.
Absolutely
I don't
true.
know how that happens.
Maybe the secret is to play live as much as possible.
I think that's an important part of it. I think playing live, but the problem with playing live is the cost, and everybody knows that you have to go out and play live to make money now, because you're not going to make any money off your music. So everybody knows this, and everybody's touring all the time. And so now I talked with a friend who, like you talk about the United States market, I'll give you just a microcosm, just an example of what's going on. He lives in Pennsylvania, and he said where he lives, there used to be maybe 2 national metal shows a month, per month. Now there's 3 national shows every single weekend. So instead of 2 shows a month, now you have 12. And people have to decide, what am I going to see? Am I going to see this band, or am I going to see this band? And now all of a sudden you have bands canceling tours, because they can't sell tickets. We had to cancel some Flotsam shows on the East Coast because the ticket sales were too light. And there's other bands like Helmet just canceled a bunch of shows due to ticket sales. And I bet you there's even many other bands that have canceled tours, and they said, oh, it's something else, a guy's sick or whatever, and they actually canceled because of lack of ticket sales. So in the United States...
Same problem not in Europe, only in the United States.
Is Europe different? Like you're not having that problem in Europe, or not, or are you having the problem?
No, I mean that, of course, also Europe could be a problem to play live, because you came from America, and so you have much more cost.
The challenge with European shows is, the minute you get on the plane, you're $8,000 in debt, like right off the bat. So, you have to go there, you have to stay a while, you have to sell merch. You really have to, financially, it has to make sense for you. And for some bands that are huge, $8,000, well, it's probably a lot more cost for them because they're probably flying over crew. We use crew that's in Europe, so we don't have to fly crew over or anything like that. But the costs of touring have pretty much doubled in the last 3 years, like fuel, the cost of vans, the cost of personnel, everything's gone up. And so from that perspective, it's definitely been challenging, to tour at this point. But, we still managed to do it. And we made 3 trips to Europe this summer. And, they were good trips. So we're happy about that.
Probably I will meet you there. So it has been very, very nice to talk with you. Many interesting things you told us, and I hope that you will be in our show also in the next future, if you like.
Absolutely, be more than happy to do that.
I can do the same thing that I have done with Rudy Sarzo. I ask people to give me some question, and then I submit it to you. So it could be even more interactive in this way. What do you think?
Be more than happy to. Thank you for having me on your show.
Me too, absolutely. So bye, and good luck for all your plans.
Thank you so much. You have a great. Is it evening over there? I guess. Yeah.
Yes, almost evening. Yes.
Okay. Have a great evening.
Thank you very much, Ken. See ya.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.